Hello, Internet. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Desert Island Institute of Film.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
Who are you?
I'm Diet Dr. Paul.
Who am I?
I'm Batman.
I am Big Paul. I want to just say right now, y'all have been so kind. We've just had things have been blowing up on the channel and folks subscribing and just very kind words people are saying on online, which is unusual because the internet can be a cold, dark, ugly place.
What? You don't say. You don't say. You don't say.
Who was it?
He didn't say.
But we appreciate that. We appreciate your feedback. If you're brand new to this, which you might have seen some of our shorts and think, what are these, the longer programs?
You serious?
We talk about movies, and it is October now, and all month long we're talking horror movies.
What would I do without you? No, you complete me.
What do you think makes us different? Before we get to our topic for the day,
If you don't want to see all this other nonsense and you want to jump right to the countdown, you can go to the time right here. Now you can continue what you were saying.
all right. Well, what do you think makes us different from all? You watch a whole lot more YouTube than I do.
You have no skills and you're a loser!
I don't know. I thought I knew that last night, and then I woke up this morning and I don't know anymore. I don't know. I thought I had the algorithm nailed.
Oh, and that was because of the one with the
5 views.
end game.
Yeah, 5 views. So, I don't know.
Well, I think what makes us different is that it's there's a lot of young people online and there's a lot of old people online. Not that you're young or I'm old, but I'm young, you're older and younger.
What happened? All of a sudden, I feel like I know better than everyone else.
That's because anytime someone walks through a cloud of vape smoke, a millennial is born.
I think I feel it.
But this is whole the generation thing. It's father and son. And you have a father or a son or a mother or a daughter or that kind of stuff, and you probably have talked about movies. That's what we do, but we do it in maybe a quirky way, and a lot of it is just because I think we're quirky people, especially this guy.
I want to dance the night away. What the hell are you two doing? It's called rocking out. You wouldn't understand, Dad. You're not with it. I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me.
Our goal in this is not to rehash what you've already seen on another channel. We talk about the top 7. I don't like watching something, so I've seen every single one of those 7 movies. That didn't bring me anything new. I'm always looking for something new, and you've turned me on to more different things that I never even heard of.
Yeah.
And so that's really for folks that are, if you're my age and you're watching this, listen, you're going to hear things that you've never seen before, and if you're his age and watching it, you're probably going to hear things from me that are in black and white or have subtitles.
You know, whatever. You do what you like to do, I do what I like to do, okay?
But we truly, sincerely appreciate all the attention that you've been doing. Stick around. You can always go back and watch our first episode and see what we're a little bit more about what we are.
Yeah. The more people that watch, I feel like I have to do a better job
Doing what?
coming up with things,
Well,
searching for more.
can they help with this?
Well, no, that's the whole point is what's the reason to tune in if you're going to hear something you've heard 1,000 times
Right.
before? So
Right.
I don't want to do that.
I agree.
So
But we're also, it's not like we're deliberately trying to be, obscure.
or esoteric.
Right, because the thing is we seek out things that are different.
Yeah.
Because,
But different can be accessible.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think we've done that. I think we've proven ourselves that there's some things that were brand new to us. And you just the other day gave me a movie I'd never even heard of. I watched it, think, man, I'm glad I did that. So, are we going to talk about movies in this episode?
At some point or another, I figured we would.
And what's our topic?
This is going to be top 7 movies that changed horror forever.
Or the way I like to think about it, 7 movies that changed the world.
Well, isn't that special?
Prepare to have your mind blown. You too. 'Cause
Okay.
I took this to.
It's pre-blown. Once it's been pre-blown, you can't unblow it. So
That's what she said. That's what she said. That's what she said.
Good one. Okay, well, we got 7, and I have no idea and what you're going to say, and you don't. I tell you, you have no idea what I'm going to say.
No.
Because I treated this episode the way you treat every single episode. Oh, I did. Oh, I went.
you maybe give me some credit where credit's not due.
No, you go sometimes in places I never thought about like that.
Because that's the only place I go is the deep, dark recesses of my mind.
So who wants to go first? All right.
You seem to think that you're going to be on fire, so
All right, the top
You get the
7
ball
films
first.
that changed the world. Okay? Number 7, Unsane.
okay. Never heard of it.
Yeah,
Never heard of
I
it.
hadn't heard of it either. And the only reason I'm saying Unsane because it's an example of what I'm talking about. Because what I'm really talking about for number 7 is the iPhone and crowdsourcing. Right?
Okay.
What has happened? The movie Unsane came out in 2018, and it's directed by Steven Soderbergh.
Okay.
You know him? Okay. I mean, if you don't know, he's the Ocean's 11, Ocean 13, Sex Lies videotape. He did Traffic, Magic Mike. This is an A-list director, and he shot Unsane. It's a horror film, totally on the iPhone. The point of where I think why this is important, why crowdsourcing, it comes down to how movies are made. And it used to be people who made movies were the studios, and they had complete control over that. You have all kinds of, you've written screenplays kind of thing, but unless you're part of the studio, how do you break in? And everybody, I'm gonna go to California, I'm gonna take a bus, and I'm gonna try to be knocking on doors, trying to get into producer, and what do? You wind up, turning tricks in the park. Kind of working as a waiter.
Well, that mentality might be more now than ever just not true. Like, I think there's a
Exactly.
wall in Hollywood more now than ever.
Well, I'm saying this is what's happening with film is is the same thing happened with comic books, because it used to be unless you work for DC, Marvel, then they had things like Archie and Harvey kind of stuff, but it was a closed system. And then people came up with I'm going to make my own. I'm going to self-publish my comic book. And the one that comes to mind that changed everything from your generation, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
You know?
I was expecting something different.
No, a couple guys borrow some money and they talk to their uncle and they do it out of their garage. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles it changed comic books. And in fact, it bled into action figures and movies and stuff like that. I think we really are seeing a democratization of film, where it is anybody can do it. Robert Rodriguez, that can just sort of shoot his own movies, and he shoots it, he writes it, he cuts it, all that kind of stuff. A lot of this, it's crowdsourcing, where people are paying, they're getting their ideas, published. The Chosen, we've talked about this. I mean, it is the most successful crowdsourced project in the history of crowdsourcing, and they're into 3 seasons, getting ready to do the 4th season, all about the life of Jesus. And I know y'all are turning this off right now, but I'm telling you, this is amazing, amazing material. It is riveting what they've done.
Don't worry, I have a cricket sound effect I can use for that part. But isn't there a nasty arm to this, in your perspective, in that crowdsourced movies and low-budget films tend to access one specific niche of horror films, and what is that?
Gore, slashers?
Found footage.
Oh, yeah.
So when you have all of this accessibility, you have lots of found footage, and I think lots of found footage movies, there's not a lot of middle ground for those. They're either going to be good or they're going to be absolute dog nonsense. And so I love found footage movies. I'm a big fan. The House That October Built, I watched this weekend. I think that's a great found footage horror movie. But there's that nasty arm of that, which, can have one without the other, Love and Marriage.
Well, I think it's exciting, and I like it because I like it for the standpoint of it's like, well, why are movies made? If somebody out there has an iPhone or they raise money to shoot a movie, Kevin Smith, I mean, he started with, with Clerks, and I mean, it took him all the way to Cannes Film Festival. I think what happens is it's all about the story. It's about the idea, and that's not how Hollywood always makes movies, It's about the money. A lot of people that are just sort of doing this, saying, man, I have this great... How many times have you said to me, I have a great idea for a movie, a great idea for a movie. That's what turns me on, is I want great movies. And they start with great ideas, not somebody that's an accountant somewhere trying to, figure out how much money that something's going to make.
Because the 90s was when we really released film industry to the accountants, and we saw what they did with it.
Yeah.
They turned it into MTV, so...
Yeah. Well, I think movies, if we follow this, over the next 10, 20 years, how many movies are going to be made? I mean, you don't need massive equipment. Look at the equipment that we have for this.
Well, think about the video we did for 7 Scariest Films of All Time. 2 of the 7 Scariest Films of All Time of mine are one of them is shot with found footage style, one shot via Zoom. It's a Zoom call.
I love it.
Yeah. I think I went your route this time, and now I'm pissed off that I did. So number 7, we went in chronological order.
Oh.
So number 7 is going to be 1931's Dracula. It is what many people attribute to the ground zero of the film, of the genre of horror. It didn't exist until Dracula was, they would call it like German expressionist films. So you have Bela Lugosi, who was the first star in horror movies. You have Dracula. You have the famous scenes. And I know I prefer Bram Stoker's, but there's, Children of the Night, what music they make. That's Bela Lugosi. And so it's really...
I never drink blood.
Wine.
Wine.
Yeah. But it's ground zero, and so it's the big bang as far as horror movies are concerned.
Do you think people your age, honestly, what percentage of people your age have watched that film beginning to end?
Less than 1%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big movie buff, and I've dated a few girls that were big movie buffs, and that I just happened to stumble it onto one of those. They had like a Universal or Hammer, I think it's Universal box set, and that's how I watched it. It was a real grainy version of it, but yeah, I'd seen it just by happenstance.
Do you like it?
Normally, I don't like just random 1931 movies, but I like that movie because it's short, sweet, and it's very atmospheric. It's still in the vein of set the camera up for long periods of time, but it works in this a little bit. So I think it's, even through the lens of today, I think it still would be a passable film.
Have you seen the Mexican version? When they filmed that, they had the sets and everything. They shot the exact same movie with Mexican actors in Spanish. And so it's identical, but I think it has a different soundtrack that goes with it. And there are people who believe, even though it's sacrilegious to talk smack about Bela Lugosi, but there are people that believe that the Mexican version, the Spanish version, is a better film than the U.S. one.
Yeah, there are people that wear dirty diapers for fun, and we don't need to take our P's and Q's from them.
Okay, then. Yes. Right.
I'm just saying.
Well, you know what? It's very interesting that you said that, because I was thinking like that. I mean, I was thinking institutional films, and then I thought,
I
didn't
agree. Say movies.
Right. But I
said in chronological order.
Right. But it changed, but that did change. And Frankenstein, the Universal films, they changed movies. We would not have horror today if it wasn't.
But I'm playing your game this time and saying horror wouldn't be around without this movie at all.
I agree.
Check and mate.
I agree. 8. Number 6, the internet and streaming. And it sort of goes hand to hand with the previous one.
I love how you're putting 2 things on your list that you about all the time.
Well, if you think about horror movies, it used to be that it started in the movie theater, right? Like with the Dracula or Frankenstein, started there. And then we have this thing called television. And now you're seeing movies that are being broadcast. Those same movies, for me, I wasn't alive in the 30s or the 40s, so I saw the Universal movies on television. And then the next part of that, then you have home video. Now you can own those movies. You can go and I can purchase Dracula, I can purchase Frankenstein, and then the next level then was on the web with streaming. And what it has done is it has increased the amount of horror movies that are available. There's probably more horror movies as a genre. I don't know if this is true, but I would guess that there's more horror movies now of any genre of film that is out there. I mean, there's so much material that's out there. Used to be you go to the Blockbusters and you see, okay, if you fill the entire store with horror, there's still more horror movies that are available that you can get through the streaming. It changed it. It increased the market for it.
It's not a movie.
Well, but they show movies.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm
Okay.
not saying, but it's just when you said it, I was like, wait a minute, what is this? What's the topic that we're like? I said movies, right? I didn't say like inanimate objects, did I? Okay, number 6. It's gonna be, and I didn't want to be on the nose, so I didn't pick the easy stuff. So I went. Most people would say like, oh, what's the ground zero for like amping up gore in horror movies? They go, oh, it's the Psycho. Obviously, it's Psycho. It's the shower scene. No, it's not Psycho shower scene. Because the Psycho shower scene, quick cuts. They didn't show anything too long. It didn't lean into it. It was quick. Yeah, it was brutal and it's good. But the real ground zero is another film that came out in 1960 called Black Sunday. And it wasn't quick scene. It leaned into it, didn't look away. It was unflinching for 1960. And considering where horror movies are today, gore is a big aspect of that. And I think sensibilities have changed less in the last 50 years than horror movies have in terms of the amount of gore that's amped up. And so you can't have that without Black Sunday. And also this is sort of like, I think like the precursor for those Giallo movies, or I might be pronouncing that improperly, of like Argento and Fulci. This is sort of like the beginning of that niche and subgenre as well. So Black Sunday.
Do you think that gore is a necessary, well, you've said before, in order to be a horror movie, it's got to have gore, it's got to have humor, or it's got to have scares.
Now, and I think people sometimes get misconstrued with gore and what it means to have good gore or bad gore. I think gore can be over the top, but I also think over the top gore can be good. It just a matter of like, what's the purpose of said gore in this scene? Are you just adding more to add more, or is there some visceral purpose for it? And I particularly go back to the number 1 movie on my last list, the part 2 of scariest movies ever made, called Inside. That's a super gory movie, but that's a necessary gore because of what it's really trying to say and really trying to look into. And that's sort of like a mother protecting her baby, and that has to be visceral. But Saw, right? Do we need to see him saw his leg off? I think so. But that's not always the case.
There are gore hounds that are clearly, I mean, you think about it, there are movies that are high on gore, high on blood, but aren't particularly scary, aren't particularly interesting. I mean, I think after a while, it's just it's like it's gore for gore's sake.
Yeah.
Why do you think there are people that are just really turned into gore?
I think a lot of time people that are really into gore are into more the campy, funny, like silly Dead Alive or Evil Dead or very spoofed out versions of gore. I don't know a lot of people that like, for instance, watching the second half of Human Centipede 2 for kicks and giggles. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally the premise of that film, is that there's someone that likes watching that movie and they're a crazy person. And that's the killer in the movie, someone who likes to watch gory movies. So I don't know. Personally, I like gory movies, but I like 80s gore. I like Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I like those kinds of gory movies. Dead Alive, Evil Dead. I'm not particularly, now Martyrs is my favorite horror film. So, but again, that's gore in a visceral way, but not over the top.
As somebody that grew up in the 50s and 60s, I think my approach to gore used to be, I've never seen that before. Like, wow, how did they do that?
Yeah, really cool.
Yes. And
Practical effects.
so it's doing it differently. Okay, how can we cut off a head? How we can cut off a hand? How do we, show somebody's spleen or something like that? That's just like, wow. There was a movie that I saw, and it was on a ship, and something like a wire.
Ghost ship.
Yep, and it cut the person, in half.
It cut the entire
Wow.
ship in half.
Yeah, and I thought, ooh, it's just unique. Now,
Yeah, that's only good
But
for
once
that
you've done it once, but I think sometimes there's just gore for gore. It's like when they're a slasher and they're going to eviscerate somebody.
Mm-hmm.
How many times you got to see that?
Well, for instance, remember Death Proof, where the crash scene where he shows it from like 5 different angles, and you basically get to watch these girls die one after another. I thought that was funny and why the way he did it, it worked. But there's a way you could shoot that where it could have been like over the top too much. Like, oh, okay, now this is just a little bit much.
So in the 3 things that you need for a horror movie, it needs to be scary, it needs to be funny, or it needs to be gory. Which of those 3 is your favorite?
Scary,
And which is your least favorite?
funny.
Okay.
Because those are the most. There's more movies now because they're easier to make. Because you don't have to, you create zero atmosphere in a funny horror film. It can be a little gory and it can be a little silly. Bam, you're done. It's hard to do scary horror movies and truly terrifyingly scary horror movies.
Yep.
Which is kind of like why I'm obsessed now with this quest to find scary movies that are actually scary, not that are just fake scary. Because there are movies that maybe, like you talk about the jump scare, but that's so cheap.
Yeah.
Once it's over.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Good choice. Number 5, Blair Witch Project. It's a film. And the reason essentially is that it's the whole notion of found footage. And, I'm not as big of a fan of that because I think sometimes that it just makes things easier. It's cheap. It's, that kind of.
It's an easy way out for people.
But there's no doubt that movie was a real pivotal movie. It sort of also then opened up, for like the Paranormal Activity films. So I do think, but it's like any slasher movies. You had the slasher movie comes out and it's like, say it's Halloween, and then the next thing you know is we start repeating it. And
There's
some
always
of those,
the imitation,
right, and some of them could be good, but after a while, it goes back to what I said with comic books. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was exciting and new and novel. Well, next then you had, adolescent
jujitsu gerbils.
Yeah, and adolescent, hamsters kind of stuff, which I bought them and I watched them and I thought, it just didn't capture the same lightning in a bottle. So
There's always that imitation. There's Armageddon. There's Deep Impact. There's Volcano, and then there was another Dante's Peak. There's I Know What You Did Last Summer in Scream. There's always the sort of cheap imitation. Well, maybe not necessarily cheap imitation, but someone trying to capitalize on another version of it. Yeah. And you see that a lot in horror movies too.
because it's about the accountant.
Yep.
Yep.
I agree.
So yeah,
All right.
I gave due credit where credit is due.
All right. Well, moving on, we hit the 1960s. So now we're going to take a pit stop. Now, a lot of people want to popularize the supernatural horror genre with like The Exorcist or The Omen, but that's not true. About 5-6 years prior to that, there was Rosemary's Baby in 1968, which is, we just hadn't seen that prior to that, at least not on like a global film, because that was a very, very well-received film with Roman Polanski, who at that point wasn't looked at as piece of crap that he kind of is, and was a rock star as far as young directors were going. So it's just, that's such a big part of horror movies now, is the supernatural genre. It's either the slasher film or the supernatural, The Nun or The Conjuring or James Wan, any of those, and this is where that all got its start. But we maybe give too much credit to movies, especially like The Exorcist, where Rosemary's Baby, I think, is just as good. It's in the similar echelon of horror films to me.
You're exactly right. That's a great. I never would have thought of that. And there are people that are probably that your generation that have probably never seen it.
Yeah, they should.
When it came out, though, I think my impression of it is that it was not so much viewed a horror movie. It was a must-see movie for people that probably would never go to a horror movie, and it was like an art film, and so it really did sort of show that horror movies could be great movies. You know, we I think sometimes we judge genre films differently.
We do, and it's almost like they're like on the short bus for some reason. Like, oh, well, you're good, but you're a genre film.
Right.
So
Right. And here was, like in the same example, like Silence of the Lambs. I mean, you know, Best Picture, actor, actress, that kind of stuff. Great film, and I believe it's a horror film. As opposed to, you know, are we using the same yardstick from that as we would for, you know, Army of Darkness or Evil Dead kind of thing? But that movie was, yeah, good choice.
that's 3 movies on one list before 1970. You're welcome.
Okay. All right. My number 4, Frankenstein. For pretty much the same reason.
It's got to be De Niro's. I knew it. Kenneth Branagh. This guy loves that movie.
No. Heather and I laughed out loud at that. It's a nice model kit, though. Ooh.
I've seen the movie, and it's a 90s movie, but God, I love movies from that era.
Yeah, it was. No, I'm talking about the Universal.
Boris Karloff.
Yes, and that, and I think that was even more of an event. That's why I picked that instead of Dracula.
I mean, it's fun to be wrong sometimes.
No. And look up on your phone which one. What was the date on? You said 1931.
I think they're both 1931, but Dracula came out first.
Okay. I know that it was. I go back to that little intro section that they filmed for Frankenstein, where they bring the guy out from the camera and he says, "Good evening." You know, you're essentially going to see something that may horrify you.
And I think that even made it worse.
Well, and if you look at pictures on the internet of that film, people are around the corner to watch that.
And they would have leaned into that advertising wide prior to that if a movie could have.
Yeah, I think it's a better film. I think it's a superior film to Dracula.
That's possible.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Well,
but you wouldn't have Dracula. You wouldn't have Frankenstein without Dracula. That's all you have to say.
That's all I have to say, because it's almost a daily double.
Yeah, except there's not.
All right. Daily doubles when we both pick the same film.
Do you know who directed Frankenstein?
James Whale.
Okay, I didn't know. Just curious.
I believe, yes.
Okay. I believe you.
Well, now I'm going to have to check on that. I know he did Bride of Dracula. Did you ever see the movie Gods and Monsters?
With, what's his face?
Oh, him.
Gandalf.
Huh?
Gandalf.
Yes. And The Whale.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser.
Yes.
It's not nice to talk to people about people like that.
It's his role. It's amazing.
Whoa, it's called Fat, and it's not nice to talk to people like that.
Okay. No, great film. Great film. And it's...
Are you looking that up?
No, I know. I mean, I'm going to, look at the... Just go ahead and talk about your next film.
No, you need to hear it, because I'm just over here slaying this episode. All right. Number 4 for me. And this is not just, I think, one of the most influential horror films. I think this is a hugely influential film in general, just for the landscape of horror and how we digest it, or landscape of film and how we digest it. And that's going to be 1975's Jaws. That is the origins of the summer blockbuster, but it's also origins of, like, obviously The Birds was first, but we've seen since Jaws a plethora of big monsters or monster movies, whether they're kaijus or they're big insects. There's animals that have run amok, and we see movie after movie after movie. And Jaws is really like the first popular one. But that, to me, I'm pissed off that we've did 2 episodes of the 7 scariest movies ever, and I haven't had that on either of my lists.
Haven't I had it on mine?
I don't think so. Because there are very few films on Earth where if I picture in my brain being in the situation where I would genuinely begin to get ill it's like sick to my stomach and nauseated, it's Jaws. And it's just because that's real. It doesn't take like a giant shark. It just takes a shark, not even a big one, to mess you up in a gnarly way. And so I just think that the realism to it, you don't have three better suited actors. You have, the old head, you got the young guy, and then you have the character actor that's too committed to the role. But yeah, Jaws. There's a reason why I spoofed it in one of the first episodes we did.
Yep. And I absolutely agree. And I swear on one of my lists for one of the episodes, I had Jaws on there for that very reason. It changed movies. It did. I mean, the summer was dead time.
It might have
for
been one that we
movies.
filmed that hasn't been edited because that's how I usually
Yeah.
tell as if I've had to search for the videos for it.
Yeah.
And I know I haven't yet, so.
Yeah, people would they would vacation in the summertime and beach in the summertime and all that kind of stuff. Spielberg put Jaws in front of people, and all of a sudden now summer is a huge. That's where you bring the tentpole movies out. That's where you're going to get all the fine DC product that you're gonna put out there for folks.
Yeah, before the real good stuff happens late summer.
Good choice. Yes, and you were correct. Dracula came out just a few months ahead of Frankenstein.
They didn't greenlight Frankenstein until after Dracula.
It's not true.
That is true.
All right, number 3.
Someone's salty.
Number 3, Psycho.
I got him.
Hitchcock. And why is that so? Why is that change movies? It changed it, and I think we might have even said it in one of our other episodes, talking that movies have a typical structure to it. There are things that trope that are part of films, and Psycho broke some of that mold.
The MacGuffin. The false beginning.
Okay.
It's called MacGuffin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's called MacGuffin.
Oh, you studied film. I didn't. I know it. The fact that they kill off the main character. It's
And it was never really done before.
no, that it was kind of and it also the fact that you have a strong female protagonist. I mean, this opened up the door for we've talked before like Terminator with Sarah Parker. Is that her name?
Sarah Connor.
Sarah Connor. And what else?
Ellen Ripley.
Yep. On Alien.
And even what's her face in Dawn of the Dead? Or maybe not Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. Which one has the lead female chick who's kind of a badass a bit?
It would be the Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
Although there's also one in Day of the Dead.
Yeah, they
too.
both kind of do it for early iterations of it.
Yep. No, it really did. It changed things. Remember the advertising campaign for this thing is that please don't tell anybody about the ending kind of stuff. We're not going to seat anybody after the movie started, those kind of things. And Hitchcock is clearly, if I had my Mount Rushmore of directors, Hitchcock is on it. I mean, he'd a man.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't argue with you putting him on there.
I probably wouldn't because you're probably going to say, bring it on. It's coming up here.
No, it's not.
Daily Double.
We're past that. Remember, we're going in chronological order.
Okay.
All right. I didn't want to cut you off.
No,
there.
that's it. That
Okay.
was.
Then shut up.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Moving on. We move our way into postmodern horror, where this is where I really like because this is usually kicking off in the 90s. And I didn't pick a 90s movie here because a lot of the best stuff in this sort of but for those who don't know what postmodern is sort of where we introduced horror, where we had like a social critique. So Dawn of the Dead, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Those are the big ones, right? I didn't want to do that, so I went to 2017. Yeah, I know, get mad, it's not chronological. But so I picked 2017 is Jordan Peele's Get Out, because I think that's a perfect film for that, that's accessible, and I think it deals with the subject matter that people, it's like a hot topic now. Obviously, race relations is always going to be, ad nauseum for people. So there's that. It's got great cast in it, good character actors, and I love the brother, I love the girlfriend, I like the lead in it who's just killing it. I like the guy, the dad, the mom. It's really well done, well written. But again, and it's important because this is where we started to take horror movies a little bit more seriously. We got it back away from the lawyer's hands, and now we started to make movies that are a little bit more cinematic, and this is where people can start appreciating horror from being more than just like a sideshow.
Great choice. Great choice. And my Mount Rushmore, Jordan Peele he is on his way.
There's 3 directors right now that I think are tearing it up. Now, Jordan Peele likes to write and produce a lot as well, but I still include his like Jordan Peterson, Ari Aster, and Ty West. Familiarize yourself with these 3 men because they're absolutely murdering it. They don't make bad movies. They've done probably 15 horror films amongst them. They don't throw Robert Eggers in there too. He's only done 3 movies, but they all kill it. They all murder it.
What's Peele's best movie?
Jordan Peele's best movie. Oof. I think it probably would be Get Out. I think it's his best movie to date.
Really?
Yeah.
More so than Nope?
Yeah, I really do like Nope a lot the more I watch it. It's very unsettling. I like movies that don't spoon feed it to you. That's why I love that No One Will Save You.
You have to work in those movies. That's not
Same
something.
thing with Us. When we came out of Us, I was upset. I didn't like it. But it's because I just wasn't prepared to sort of what I was going to dissect with my mind. And the more I go back to that one, I enjoy that movie now too.
It really allows you to create your own reality. It doesn't tell you, you're a participant in this thing. It's a constructivist activity, and that's why I like about him.
Yeah, if you have not seen some Ty West movies, you need to. He keeps working with Mia Goth. That's one I watched yesterday for second and third time. But he did like Pearl, and then he did X, and he did Maxine. And Pearl and X, I believe, are not so subtle sequels to one another if you pay attention to it close enough.
M. Night Shyamalan, Jordan Peele. Who's the best?
Shyamalan.
Really?
Yeah, I mean.
But he's not on your list.
So? He's not young, though. He's proven himself. I think he gets a bad rap. I think if you take the Avatar movie out of his Rolodex of films here, there's enough good stuff in there where you just can't, fault him as a director. He doesn't get enough credit.
All right. Well, good. You ready for my number 2? Scream.
What's your second movie?
That is my second movie.
Oh, okay.
Why? Tell me why, because we've talked about
I just told you why. Postmodern.
And what did it change?
Well, it made you start thinking about horror films farther than just, that person died. Like, what does it mean, right? It's the rules of horror film. It's dissecting things. It's not always going for the low-hanging fruit, as I like to say it sometimes.
Describing the rules and breaking the rules. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest rules it broke was who goes to horror films? Mm-hmm. I know it used to be Boys Club, and that was the first time, even with your sister. Man, she became rampant.
Hooked into it.
Right. And
Skeet
when I
Ulrich.
was growing up, girls would. So if you had a date, I'll go anything. They want to go romantic movies or whatever, action film. They want to go to horror films. Market today, you go into a theater. Mm-hmm.
Very much so.
Now, it did change. It changed who goes to horror movies, and it's also, I agree with you in terms of it's a postmodern sort of commentary on the genre itself.
Yeah,
We're
and I would have absolutely, for my number 3, would have been Scream if I hadn't used it on another list recently. Is that all?
That is it.
Okay. Number 2. All right. Now, we need to pay homage to outside the United States. And we got to go to foreign horror. And specifically, where does most foreign horror from an American perspective, anything outside of America is foreign horror? If you're French, France is not foreign horror, American is. So from my perspective, it would be Asian.
Germany.
Asian, Germany.
I know, Japan.
But France as well. They all kind of in there. So, but the one that I think has been the Asian horror crowd in Japan. So I said, what's the movie that just sticks? What's the top of the heap for that, or sort of like maybe the granddaddy of them all?
Gojira.
No. I'll give you another guess. It's the easy one, I think. I think it's the one most people should think
Audition?
of. No, because I already used that one. But Ringu. The original Ring. Not the 1995 made for TV, but the 98 original Japanese version of the film. The American remake's not bad as far as it goes. And in fact, I enjoyed that film because of its sort of like MTV dark view of how they put it together. But
I think that's probably, if you talk to people out in the internet right now, what was the first Japanese horror film you saw? Ringo was probably the one.
Or you saw the original American version of the film.
I think that if you ask most people in the internet what was the first foreign horror film you saw, certainly the first J-horror, Japan horror.
Yeah, or like I said, it would be the first American adaptation, and shortly thereafter came The Grudge, The Eye, Dark Water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then for me, at least, it was then let's just move to the Asian stuff, because obviously we're just remaking that crap anyway. And then it was sort of the adjacent stuff, Infernal Affairs and Old Boy and the other things that connected to it. So, so I picked Ring, The Ring, Ringu, whatever you want to call it.
It was fresh, and it goes back to, it's like, what we're tired of seeing the same things, the remakes. That's why, oh my goodness, and what do? We taste something fresh and we remake it.
And it's another one of those horror premises that I think is like the golden goose. There's like 30 Days a Night, I think is a great premise. But then I think The Ring is a really great premise too. There's a videotape that if you watch it, you die 7 days later. Okay, indiscriminate violence. Check, please.
Good choice, man. So we are now up to our number one choice.
Yep.
Night of the Living Dead.
Flippin' knew it.
You did.
I knew
why
it.
would I say that?
Because I think that's like like for me, when there's the go-to, it's like maybe it's not your favorite, but it's the one you like the most, or to rewatch the most. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's the one that first scared you, first got its hooks in you. I'm not sure which one of those, but I know you have a great affinity for it.
Well, I think reason it is on there is that I think sometimes the wrong people are in charge of movies. That it's the accounting, it's the public relations folks. And what Night of the Living Dead was it was created by the creator was part of that. It was part of this democratization of film, because it was this guy shooting it on weekends kind of stuff, had this idea. It was different. If he would have gone to the studios and sort of pitched this, probably would never have done that.
Never, ever.
I think what has happened is that film has become it's a sprint instead of marathon. And what I mean by that is that right now, I think the standard is we want to make a film as quick as we can. We want to get it out to market. We want to soak up as much money as we possibly can, instead of letting the film find its audience. And that's what happened with Night of the Living Dead. When it first came out, it was not like an immediate success. The Wizard of Oz wasn't an immediate success. Shawshank Redemption. What saved Shawshank Redemption was the home video. That was when it first came out. I was like, oh my goodness! Now it's like one of the, it's a film institution. With Night of the Living Dead, you had this thing that just, it has become like comic books, where you have conventions, and it is informed where right now. There are, I don't know if this, but I would believe that zombies there are more zombie films made than any other type of, although the supernatural stuff that's more in it. But think about it, it's done TV, they've done comedies, there's role-playing games, there are video games. All of that has happened because of what George Romero, what he did. I just saw an article the other day, talk about Kenneth Branagh. He's done 3 films now that are adaptations of Agatha Christie. And the first one, the first 2 was Murder on Orient Express and the Death on the Nile.
Okay.
So what the people in Hollywood have done is that they're trying to deliberately go after the younger market. So if you look at
they marketed it as a horror movie.
Now, it is adapted from an Agatha Christie movie, Halloween, but it's all about sort of like how we can drive people to the seats. It's marketing. It's an accountant. I read this article saying they think that that's going to be the last one. And the reason it's the last one, even though it's considered to be the best of the three, it's not making crazy money. You know, it cracked $100 million, but it's just this whole notion of, well, why can't it just be a good film? Every movie doesn't have to be a $100 million blockbuster. Why don't, if you've got $100 million to invest in making movies, I would rather see you make 5 great small budget movies than to take that $100 million and put it in something that's going to be a Marvel monstrosity.
Well, I think that there's a misconception that just because it's a big budget movie doesn't mean it's a Marvel movie. Most well-made period piece films cost just as much as it costs to make a Marvel movie. But now it's like
make decisions.
We always, whether it's the money or not, it's we take it too far, and it's this whole Snow White nonsense, right? We had to get rid of this and make the 12 Dwarfs this, that. Why do we have to do anything?
Right.
Why don't you just write me the best Snow White script you can find? Instead of trying to write me the best Snow White script you can make that has a powerful female that doesn't want a male in her life, that's not got 12 dwarves in it, that they're multicolored. Why? What? Wait, what? You want this, that? No. I'd be like, nope,
I
I'm
don't
out
want
of
to
here.
be marketed to.
Nope.
I want to be
I'm going to write a
entertained.
Snow White story. As a writer, I'm going to create a story, and then I'm going to give it to you. And you can either take it or leave it.
And then let your audience have a chance to find it. When I was growing up, there would be, when you'd open up the newspaper and you'd see the movie ads that were on it, there would be, okay, you know, now in its 20th week, now in its 30th week. You would have a movie there that would just be there forever. We don't do that as long.
No,
come
they
in-
go so quick now,
Right.
too. How
So-
fast does it go to streaming from the movie theater now?
Sometimes the same day it's released.
And it's because it doesn't do well.
Right.
And they're trying to get as much money as they can. And so we'll cut the tickets out, sell it to you for $20 at home, and you'll buy it.
Let your audience find that film. If it's a good film, they'll find it, you know?
Eventually they will.
But that's, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear your
All right.
number one movie.
Number one. We're in the present, baby. We're in what I like to call, and I may have already talked about this. Well, that's stupid. Elevated horror, baby. I was going off about some young up-and-coming directors, and this was the top of, well, number 2 on my Mount Rushmore was Studio A24. But I can include like Blumhouse in here, and there's some Magnet Films in there too, and Anchor Bay. Really, a lot of these other smaller companies that put out good movies for the sake of good movies. And it's the elevated horror. It's now horror can be sophisticated. It can be nominated for an Academy Award. There was one movie on my list that I talked about being nominated for an Academy Award. No, I'm not sure which one it is.
There was a crowdsourced horror film that actually won an Oscar. It was a short.
Okay, Quite On in 1965 was the first horror movie to ever be nominated for an Academy Award, but it was a foreign language Academy Award. Now they are nominated for Academy Awards. Robert Eggers, I talked about, is a director that is the cream of the crop in terms of like what Hollywood wants from an art director, and the last movie he did was a horror movie. Ty West, you have these guys, again, they're starting these small movies, but they don't play like small movies. The budget for The Lighthouse was not as considerably big as you would think. It's because this guy did a lot with nothing, but it's this elevated horror. Now these movies are great movies that just happen to be horror movies, and not horror movies that just some stumbled into being great.
And what was the film? I missed
The
the
film.
name.
Oh yeah, I didn't give you the film. I'm sorry. The film is going to be. I did Pearl on a list before, so this is sort of the sequel, I guess you could kind of say, and it's called X from 2022 by Ty West, and it is about. Shout out to Kid Cudi's in this movie. Oh my goodness. But it is about a young man who wants to make a movie, but the only movie that he can find to really make is a porn with this director. But he's going to make a great movie. It can be a good movie that happens to be a porn. And so they rent this house in the middle of nowhere in Texas, run by this old folks, so they can just, make their movie and then go home. Well, these old folks are not all there, and, things decay into madness pretty quickly, but this is a movie that I think has all three. It's not just gory and gross at times. It's unnerving and it's scary at times because of what it says about, I think, old age and dementia. And then it's funny. It's absolutely hysterical at times. So without being slapsticky. So I think this is Ty West's best movie to date. And Mia Goth, man, she kills it again. Everybody in this movie nails it. What's her face is in it? She played Wednesday Addams, and she's in the new Scream movie. She's in this out of nowhere. But yeah, if you've not seen X and you like this new wave horror, you got to watch that one. It's a good one.
You talked about that outside the camera before, and it kind of makes me want to.
That's good.
What's it rated?
It's rated R. But they do have the sex scenes in it, but it's done in, like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I think when you watch scenes like that, it's too much. It's like, okay, I get it. Let's go. Come on. Like, this isn't helping the story. I didn't feel like that with this, which is the only reason why it's at number one on high enough, because I didn't feel that at all. I wasn't weirded out by any of it. It's not like staring someone in the eye while they have sex. It's just, it was able to do it in a acceptable manner that didn't feel weird. So
You heard it here. I mean, people from my generation. I mean, most of what. I mean, obviously, a lot of yours are probably people my age. I mean, they've seen Jaws and they've probably seen Dracula, but you know, certainly X and Ringu, maybe in Black Sunday, perhaps. But very interesting kind of thing. Now, not as erudite as my list, because I'm talking about the internet. I'm talking about
that's my favorite
iPhone.
movie, internet and iPhone.
You understand why and why there's 7 and 6? Is it?
I get it. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Okay.
I'm giving you a hard time.
Well, what else do you have? Anything else to say to our many viewers?
Not that I know of.
Okay. This is our last Halloween.
Last Halloween episode. Yeah.
Well, we still got to watch Pulse.
You still got to watch Pulse.
I'm going to say this, and it's as heartfelt. Sorry, I just banged my mic. Let me say this as heartfelt as I can. If you're out there, we've had a chance to look at our data, our metrics,
Our
sort of-
research.
yes, and who are the age levels of folks. And so there are clearly people out there that is his age that is tuned into this, more so than any age demographic. And then there's people my age. I'm talking to you folks now that are my age. Call your son or call your daughter and make an appointment to sit down and watch a movie together. Maybe one of the ones on the list. Doesn't have to be horror, but do that. This has, since we started this channel, and we have released a new episode every Thursday without fail. We're proud of that. We're about 6 months into this.
So like episode 24, 25, but I mean, we've done way more than that.
I just got to tell you what this means to me as a father to son. I mean, I'm learning about you, learn about your kids, listen to them, find out what they like. And if you're this guy's age, you know, call your dad, call your mom, try to get together and do this. This will enrich your life, and we hope that this show has been informative to you. Hope you've had fun, and we'd love to have people on the show. If you're interested, just there's an address on the screen, and or email us kind of stuff. Say, hey, yeah, I want my dad or my mom or whatever. We like to have 2 generations, but I'm at the point where I'm not even holding. If you're out there and you review movies and you have something that's different and your approach is a little different than ours, hey, come on the show.
Yeah, you don't need a kid.
That's why I've said that a million times.
Yeah.
You don't need a kid. But it'd be interesting, just your approach to this versus our approach to it would be really nice. And thanks to everybody who has subscribed. We really want you to keep doing that. Give us your feedback.
Suggestions.
Yeah, which we're getting more of that. People like some of the things that we do. They don't like some of the things that we do. And that's great. That's amazing. Thank you for your kindness and how polite everybody has been. We really do appreciate that. And we will see you next week when we...
You didn't tell them the address.
It's on the screen.
Douche.
I did say that.
Did you? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
My
I
bad,
think
my
so.
bad. My bad.
That's all right. I love you, bub. Like a son.
He made it weird.
What?
You made it weird.
How so?
I don't know.
Okay.
There are
All right.
people watching us right now.
I know. Hugs. See you at the movies.